nagsimbolo sa litrang SPG, striktong pagtudlo ug paghiya, ilabi na sa mga tema.
Tame! Why is it the hot dog there is color brown?
Lingwahe,
Kay kining yawa, haskang yawa agyo.
violence,
Saksi mo mapriso ka. Aga!
sexual, horror,
Sino yung kasama mo?
og droga. Nga dili pwede sa mga kabataan.
Good day, everyone. My name is Carlo Lorenzo, and we are the group 15. We are going to tackle chapter 15, which is Rizal's second sojourn in Paris and the Universal Exposition of 1889, together with Emmanuell Tubu. Paris in the spring of 1889 was bursting with gaiety and excitement because of the Universal Exposition. Thousands of visitors from all corners of the world crowded every hotel, inn, and boarding house. Everywhere in the metropolis, the hotel rates and house rents were soaring sky high. Rizal, fresh from London, was caught in the whirl of gay Parisian life. Despite the social parties and the glittering lights of the city, he continued his fruitful artistic, literary, and patriotic labors.
Difficulty of finding quarters. In March 1889, it was extremely difficult for a visitor to find living quarters in Paris. The approaching Universal Exposition of 1889, which was scheduled to open on May 6, 1889, attracted thousands of tourists so that whole hotel accommodations were taken. To great disgust of Rizal, the cost of living spiraled high because the French landlords, taking advantage of the great demand for living quarters, raised the rents for their rooms. For a short time, Rizal lived in the house of his friend Valentin Ventura at number 45, Rue Magbe, where he polished his anointed edition of Morga's book. He transferred his residence several times, moving from one hotel to another, from one boarding house to another. Finally, he lived in a little room together with two other Filipinos, Captain Justo Trinidad, former Gobernador Silio of Santa Ana, Manila, and a refugee from Spanish tyranny, and Joseph Albert, a young student from Manila.
Life in Paris. Although life in Paris was gay, with sparkling merriment and joyous and social parties, Rizal continued to be busy in his serious pursuit. Hours were too precious for him to waste. He spent them frugally and fruitfully. He used most of his time in the reading room of the Bibliothèque Nationale or National Library, checking up his historical annotation on Morga's book. In his living quarters, writing letters to his family and friends, in the gymnasium for his daily physical exercises, and visiting his friends. In his spare hours, Rizal used to dine at the homes of his friends, such as the Pardo de Taveras, the Venturas, the Bosteds, the Lunas, etc. He was a good friend of the three Pardo de Taveras: Dr. Trinidad H. Pardo de Tavera, physician by vocation and physiologist by avocation; Dr. Felix Pardo de Tavera, also physician by vocation and an artist and sculptor by avocation; and Paz Pardo de Tavera, wife of Juan Luna. These Pardo de Taveras were the children of Don Joaquin Pardo de Tavera, an exile of 1872 who escaped from the Marianas and lived in France. On June 24, 1889, a baby girl was born to to Juan Luna and Paz Pardo de Tavera. She was their second child. The first was a boy named Andres, whose pet name was Luning. Her baptismal grandfather or ninong was Rizal, who chose her name, Maria de la Paz Blanca Lorena Hermagilda Juana Luna y Pardo de Tavera.
Rizal and Paris Exposition of 1889. Like any ordinary Filipino tourist in a foreign land, Rizal was fascinated by the Universal Exposition of Paris, which opened on May 6, 1889. The greatest attraction of this exposition was the Eiffel Tower, 984 feet high, which was built by Alexander Eiffel, celebrated French engineer. Rizal and his friends attended the opening ceremonies and saw the cutting of the ribbon by President Sandri Carnot of the Third French Republic. Paris was jammed with thousands of tourists coming from all the parts of the world. Daily, the exposition drew a vast crowd of 200,000 persons or more. One of the features of the exposition was the International Art Competition, in which Felix R. Hidalgo, Juan Luna, Felix Pardo de Tavera, and Rizal participated. Hidalgo's painting was awarded second prize. The painting of Juan Luna and Felix Pardo de Tavera each obtained the third prize, while Rizal entry, a bust which he molded, got no prize. This bust was quite good to qualify for the exhibition, but not good enough to win an international prize.
Kidlat Club. On March 19, 1889, the same day when he arrived in Paris from London, Rizal organized his Pasianos, or compatriots, into a society called Kidlat Club. Among the members were Antonio and Juan Luna, Gregoria Alguere, Fernando Canon, Lauro de Mayuga, Julio Lorente, Guillermo Poutu, and Balmodero Rojas. The Kidlat Club was purely a social society of a temporary nature. It was founded by Rizal simply to bring together the young Filipinos in the French capital so that they could enjoy their sojourn in the city during the duration of the Universal Exposition. Thus he told Blumentritt in a letter dated March 19, 1889. Today, we have formed a Kidlat Club. Kidlat in Tagalog means lightning, and for the same reason, his club will last only during the exposition. He had thought of it and formed it in 1 hour. It was disappear also like lightning.
Indios Bravos. In their sightseeing tour of the exposition grounds, Rizal and the members of the Kidlat Club were amazed to see the Buffalo Bull show, which featured the American Indians. These red-skinned Indians were proudly riding their sturdy ponies, elegantly dressed in their native attire and wearing their war feathers and paints. Rizal was enchanted by the dignified and proud bearing of the American Indians. He told his friends, "Why should we resent being called Indios by the Spaniards? Look at those Indios from North America. They are not ashamed of their name. Let us be like them. Let us be proud of the name Indio and make our Spanish enemy revise their conception of the term. We shall be Indios Bravos." Thus was born a new society of Filipinos patriots in Paris, the Indios Bravos or Brave Indians. It replaced the Imperial Kidlat Club. Its members pledged to excel in intellectual and physical prowess in order to win the admiration of the foreigners, particularly the Spaniards. They practiced with great enthusiasm the use of the sword and pistol. Rizal taught them judo, an Asian art of self-defense that he learned in Japan.
RDLM Society. Another society founded by Rizal in Paris during the Universal Exposition of 1889 was the mysterious Sociedad RDLM or RDLM Society. Many biographers of Rizal do not mention it. In fact, its existence and role in the crusade for reforms are really enigmatic. Of the numerous letters written by Rizal and his fellow propagandists, only two mention this secret society as follow. First is Rizal letter to Jose Maria Basa on Paris, September 21, 1889. And the second is Rizal letter to Marcelo H. del Pilar in Paris on November 4, 1889. So much mystery surrounded the RDLM because Rizal rigidly guarded its secret existence. Evidently, it was patterned after Freemasonry. It had various degrees of membership, with the members not knowing each other. Only a few of Rizal's trusted friends become the member of the RDLM, namely Gregorio Arguelle, Jose Maria Basa, Julio Lorente, Marcelo H. del Pilar, Mariano Ponce, Balmodero Rojas, and Father Jose Maria Chanco, a Filipino priest.
Annotated edition of Morga published. Rizal's outstanding achievement in Paris was the publication in 1890 of his annotated edition of Morga's Successos, which he wrote in the British Museum. It was printed by Garnier Fresses. The prologue was written by Professor Blumentritt upon the request of Rizal. In his prologue, Blumentritt commended Rizal for his fine historical scholarship. However, he frankly censured Rizal for two things which revealed Rizal's errors, namely, Rizal commits the error of many historians in appraising the events of the past in the light of present standards, and number two, Rizal's attacks on the church were unfair and unjustified, because the abuse of the friars should not be construed to mean that Catholicism is bad. Rizal dedicated his new edition of Morga to the Filipino people so that they would know of their glorious past.
Rizal as historian. Rizal research studies in the British Museum in London and in the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris, enriched his historical knowledge. Aside from his excellent annotation on Morga's book, Rizal wrote other works which qualify him to be a real historian. Among them are two historical commentaries written in London, Mai, December 6, 1888, and Tawalisi of Ibn Battuta on January 7, 1889. Filipinos dentro de 100 años, the Philippines within a century. Published in La Solidaridad in 4 issues on September 30, October 31, December 15, 1889, and February 15, 1890. Sobre la indolencia de los Filipinos, the indolence of the Filipinos. Published in La Solidaridad in 5 successive issues on July 5, July 31, August 1, August 31, and September 1, 1890. La Política Colonial on Filipinas, or Colonial Policy in the Philippines.
The Philippines within a century. In this article, Rizal expressed his views on the Spanish colonization in the Philippines and predicted with amazing accuracy the tragic end of Spain's sovereignty in Asia. He portrayed at the beginning of this article the glorious past of the Filipino people, then described their economic stagnation and unhappiness under the harsh and bungling Spanish rule. Toward the last paragraph of the article, he peered into the future and warned Spain of what would happen to her colonial empire in Asia if she would not adopt a more liberal and enlightened policy toward the Philippines.
The Indolence of the Filipinos. This other essay of Rizal is also a prestigious work of historical scholarship. It is an able defense of the alleged indolence of Filipinos. In the spirit of the real scholar, Rizal made a critical study of the causes why his Filipino did not work hard during the Spanish regime. His main thesis was that the Filipinos are not by nature indolent. Long before the coming of the Spaniards, he pointed out the Filipinos were industrious and hardworking. They were very active in agriculture, industries, and commerce. The Spanish conquest of country brought about a decline in economic activities because the Filipinos had abandoned their pre-Spanish industry and worked less than their ancestors.
International Association of Filipinologists, taking advantage of world attention which was then focused at the Universal Exposition of 1889 in Paris, Rizal proposed to establish an International Association of Filipinologists and have its inaugural convention in the French capital. He first submitted this idea to Blumentritt in a letter dated January 14, 1889, and the letter gladly supported him. He wrote the prospectus of this international association. According to this prospectus, the aim of the association is to study the Philippines from the scientific and historical point of view. The officers were as follows: President, Dr. Ferdinand Blumentritt, Australian. Vice President, Mr. Edmund Plauchut, French. Counselor, Dr. Reinhold Ross, Anglo-German. Counselor, Dr. Antonio Maria Rigidor, Filipino-Spanish. Secretary, Dr. Jose Rizal, Filipino.
Project for Filipino College in Hong Kong. Another magnificent project of Rizal in Paris, which also fizzled out of, was his plan to establish a modern college in Hong Kong. He wrote to his friend Jose Maria Basa about this matter. According to Rizal, this college aimed to train and educate men to good family and financial means in accordance with the demands of modern times and circumstances. A rich Filipino resident in Paris, Mr. Mariano Conanan from Mexico, Pampanga, promised to help him raise 40,000 as initial capital for the college. The curriculum consisted of the following subjects: ethics, study of religion; natural law, civil law, deportment, hygiene; mathematics, physics and chemistry; natural history, geography, political economy; universal history, Philippine history, logic, rhetoric, and poetics; Spanish, English, French, German, Chinese, and Tagalog; gymnastic, equitation, fencing, swimming, music, drawing, and dancing.
Por telefono. We have mentioned before that Rizal defended his nollie from the slanderous attack of Fray Jose Rodriguez by penning a satirical booklet entitled La Vision del Fray Rodriguez in the fall of 1889. He wrote another satirical work entitled Por Telefono as a reply to another slanderer, Father Salvador Font, who masterminded the banning of his nollie. Por Telefono was published in booklet form in Barcelona, 1889. Rizal received the printed copies from Mariano Ponce as revealed by his letter to the latter dated Paris, August 13, 1889. The satirical pamphlet under the authorship of Dimas Salang, one of Rizal's pen names, is a witty satire which ridicules Father Font. It describes in comical vein a telephone conversation between Father Font, who was in Madrid, and the Father Provincial of San Agustin Convent in Manila. Por Telefono demonstrate not only Rizal's sparkling wit but also his prophetic insight.
Christmas in Paris. December 25, 1889 was a wintry day in Paris. Rizal and Jose Albert, who were living frugally in a small room occupied by Captain Justo Trinidad, planned to have a sumptuous Christmas dinner. They scraped enough money to celebrate Yuletide. They prepared a Christmas dinner with fried chicken, rice, and vegetables. This dinner proved to be Rizal's last Christmas in Paris. Shortly after New Year, Rizal made a brief visit to London, Biographers do not know the purpose of the visit. It may be due to two reasons. First, to check up his annotated edition of Morga's Successos with the original copy in the British Museum. And number two, to see Gertrude Beckett for the last time. By the middle of January 1890, he was back in Paris. He complained of a terrible headache. At the time, an epidemic of influenza was raging in Europe.